as carvers, we're always hoping to get commissions and flattered by people who would like to own our works. And sometimes commissions can be the downfall of an artist. I don't like to work on a commission basis so much, because it keeps me from perhaps doing what I'd really like to do, species-wise, you know. If anyone's commissioning an artist to do a piece for them, the collector, the buyer, is probably better off asking the artist what they really want to do instead of asking for something that the artist really doesn't have an interest in doing, but they will because it's a sale. And not everybody is in a position to say, no, I really don't want to do that. But if you can know what it is that you want to do, and you are not in a desperate place where you need to take anything you can get, you might be better off not taking the commission. I know of one artist whose success was so great, so fast, didn't really think much about taking, I guess it's more than one artist, taking all the commission that came their way, but they also took the money, took money down and spent it. And the commission, the number of commissions that this artist had agreed to and taken money for was about 2-3 years of work that they're already committed to. Now they have to really follow through on what it is they said they'd do, because they've taken the money, or they'd have to give the money back. And like I said, quite often that money is spent before the carving's even done. So think long and hard before you decide you want to do a commission. And if you can convince the buyer that they'd be better off buying something that you really want to do as an artist, they're going to get a much better piece if it's something I want to do versus something they want me to do and I'm not familiar with, or I'm not comfortable with carving that. I don't have the reference material that I need. And there's a lot of things that weigh into whether or not you can actually pull a carving off. And so this artist who took all of this commission money lost face and never made good on the commitment he'd made for taking the money down. Like when I have a commission, I'm actually going to do one. I ask for half down to get started. That helps me pay for the wood. It also says that this buyer's serious, and it gives me a little bit of operating money because you know, on a commission, chances are it's going to be, for me, a lengthy project. So if you get half down, fine, but then, you know, you've got to finish the piece. And when you finish the piece, on delivery, I ask for whatever shipping costs it would be, along with the last half of the agreed price. And you also may want to leave it open for additional expenses to be added should they arise. But, you know, once you commit, you gotta do it. And unfortunately, this very talented artist had to leave the wildfowl carving world because they, for some reason, could not make good on their promise. So, best not to overextend yourself into years of commitment to things that you know, because things will change. Like one year I'll want to do something and I'm all fired up to do it, and then I don't get to it for one reason or another. And by the time I would have gotten to it, I don't want to do that anymore. So I really want to make sure that whatever it is I'm carving is something I want to do, not so much that what my student wants to do, because I carve a piece right alongside my students so that I can demonstrate how they should be carving their bird without me having to carve on their bird for them. So if I'm working in a private setting with a student, we will discuss what it is they'd like to carve, what I have for reference material, and what I feel comfortable in their choices in of species, what I feel comfortable in carving. And we come to an agreement, and then I draw up a pattern. We agree, you know, they say I like this pose or I like that pose, and show me a picture of what they're interested in, the species we've agreed on, and then we go ahead and draw a pattern accordingly. But even in teaching, I want to be carving things that I'm interested in, not as much as the student, and that sounds selfish, but it's absolutely the truth. And something to consider. Another thing you might want to consider if you're new to carving is holding on to your first works for your family. For, you know, one of my very first loon hunting decoy was a magnum sized decoy that won Best in Show at the California Open. And that piece is actually in the Minnesota Historical Museum in St. Paul, Minnesota, in their decoy collection. They had contacted me and they wanted something to represent what I had done in the carving world. They felt that I had paved the way for women and other carvers in Minnesota, and so women carvers overall, and carvers in Minnesota from the decoy club that I started, Minnesota Decoy and Wildfowl Carving Club, back in 86, 85, 86, back in there. It's been a while. And that club is still in existence today. We've had some famous people be involved with the club. Randy Toll, Ralph John Fritz, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Ralph John Fritz was a personality on the news here in Minneapolis, WCCO. He came and interviewed me a couple of years ago. You can see that on YouTube as well. I'm starting to get towards the bottom. almost through with the back of the head. It's a little more challenging when you get down to these feather clumps in the back. I'll be coming back and showing how I split these things up in the next pass after we hunt down some grain lines. I see all kinds of things I want to jump back on and take care of, but it's going to have to be done on this subsequent passes. I can kind of feel it in my thumb today. When you slow down to take care of more detail like I am now, tend to get the heat a little bit more on your fingers. I do find myself holding my breath sometimes, unnecessarily. And that can be tiring if you're not realizing that you're doing it. So check your breathing. Make sure you're not holding your breath unless you really need to, like on some very intricate burning, say on primary feathers where you only get one shot. It's either right or it's wrong, so I do hold my breath then, but I don't need to be holding my breath when I'm doing something like this. And I do find myself still doing it occasionally, but pretty much checked myself on that years ago. But check it on yourself to make sure that you're not, robbing yourself of oxygen for no real reason other than you're a little bit nervous about what you're doing in a stage like this, or a step such as this. So I'm starting to come around to the very bottom, and this is going to be just more refined than clumpy. See, this is the stuff I'll clean up when I come back on my second pass. Second and third pass. After I find the green lines. You can see I started touching the heel of the tip onto the feathers below, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm coming backwards and adding some of those lines. And this is where that rounded heel is helpful, because it's not extended down into the detail that I was working above, in the areas above. Okay, so that would be the first pass on the head feathers I could reach. Seeing quite a bit of difference on this side to the other side. Catching that up a little bit more to the look of the other side, the amount of lines and burning, so it's even. Looks a bit better. So my next step is going to have to be pulling out my spear tip.